So much for joining us. First off, how are your residents out there coping with this? Are there enough beds? Are there enough supplies? Is everybody getting the help that they need?
Well, Katie, it's the city of Houston and the Texas Gulf Coast is reeling. This storm has done historic damage. Here in Houston, my hometown, there have been over 2,000 high water rescues, and the flooding has exceeded anything the city's ever seen before. The George R. Brown Convention Center, where I am now, is a shelter that's been set up with 5,000 beds. We were at 3,000 this morning. We're expected to hit capacity by the end of the day, and other shelters are being stood up. And I'll tell you right now, the highest priority still remains on the preservation of life, on high water rescues, people who are still trapped. It is still raining like crazy outside, and the flooding continues to rise. I think we're headed towards getting through this, and we're going to get through this. But right now, there's been an incredible coordination of assets, of local and state and federal assets, all working together, first responders risking their lives to pull people out of harm's way.
And, Senator, there's been a lot of talk about whether or not there should have been an earlier order of a mandatory evacuation in Houston. Do you think that should have happened, now looking at this in hindsight?
Well, you know, I think there'll be plenty of time after this disaster subsides to look back in hindsight and assess what was done well and what could have been done better. At this point, I think everyone's attention has to be focused on the immediate crisis at hand. Yesterday, when I was speaking to the mayor here in Houston, he conveyed a real shortage of assets, boats and helicopters and high water trucks to rescue those who were trapped. That the calls to 911 exceeded their capacity. So I spent much of the day yesterday on the phone with federal officials, with the governor, with state officials, trying to marshal additional assets. We've seen now, we've got over 500 Texas DPS troopers here in Houston. We've got over 3,000 National Guardsmen. We've got the Coast Guard that is actively assisting in search and rescue. We've got actually the Border Patrol down from the border that has high water rescue experience coming up to provide assistance. And the focus needs to be continuing on reaching those people in need. And let me say to anyone at home who's watching this, who may be in the path of rising floodwaters, stay out of harm's way. Do not go up into the attic unless you have an axe to get out. People can get trapped in the attic. You're safer on the roof than you are in the attic. And if at all possible, avoid going in your car. The most dangerous thing you can do, unless it is an emergency, is get in a car and go into moving water. Swiftly moving water can be deceptive, and it can easily put you and your family, your lives and safety in jeopardy. Find a place that is safe, that is high, that is dry, and stay there. And if you get into trouble, call 911 so that emergency responders can come help you.
And, Senator, 450,000 people are expected to ask for aid once this storm is over. Are you confident, and can you guarantee they will get the help they need from the federal government?
I am confident of that. In the last several days, I've spoken with President Trump. I've spoken with the Vice President. I've spoken with a number of cabinet members. And to a person, every single administration official has committed their full, enthusiastic, and swift support and response. The president a couple of days ago convened a cabinet meeting by video conference in which he instructed every cabinet member lean in as aggressively as possible, and we're seeing that federal responsiveness. I know Governor Greg Abbott, with whom I'm very close, he has been very pleased by the federal interaction. In fact, just yesterday he signed an order setting up a dual command center that is state and federal so that we can coordinate the response and not have a problem with the two working together. And so I'm confident that everything that is needed at the federal level, the president directly committed to me, Ted, whatever Texas needs, Texas will get and get swiftly, and I'm grateful for that commitment.
That is good to hear. Senator, the president is talking about coming to Texas on Tuesday. Do you think it's the right time to come, considering this storm is still ongoing and could stretch into the weekend?
Well, I understand why the president wants to come. When he and I spoke, he expressed concerns about not wanting to come too soon and distract resources, distract assets that are needed in life-saving. My understanding is tomorrow he's planning to come to areas that are not facing immediate flooding, but rather that were hit on the first end of the storm. I think that probably makes some sense, but
do you think
I know
he's
that's
going to be redirecting resources, though, that could have But could those resources be used in Houston right now and other areas that are currently experiencing flooding?
Yeah, well, I am confident the federal government is going to devote the resources needed, and that is what my office is working hand in hand with local mayors, local county judges, local officials, police officers, and connecting them with state resources and federal resources. I'm confident that coordination will continue.
Final question, Senator. I know you're busy, and I want to let you get back to doing everything you can out there. But a lot of people are pointing out that you voted against aid for Sandy after that catastrophic storm up in the Northeast, that package back in 2012. And they're pointing at you and saying you're asking for money now when you weren't willing to help the people in the Northeast. What do you have to say to them?
Well, look, there's time for political sniping later. I think our focus needs to be on this crisis and this disaster.
These are people who needed money and who needed funding right after that storm. I covered those people. Many of them, just like those in Houston, lost absolutely everything they owned.
Well, Katie, of course that's right. And the accurate thing to say is that I and a number of others enthusiastically and emphatically supported hurricane relief. The hurricane relief and disaster relief has been a vital federal role for a long, long time, and it should continue. The problem with that particular bill is it became a $50 billion bill that was filled with unrelated pork. 2/3 of that bill had nothing to do with Sandy. And what I said then and still believe now is that it's not right for politicians to exploit a disaster and people are hurting to pay for their own political wish list. Disaster relief needs to be focused on the victims of disaster relief, and I supported that for Sandy, disaster relief there, and I would support that anywhere there's a major disaster without getting distracted by political unnecessary pork spending.
And Texas, and Senator, let's hope everybody in Texas is getting absolutely everything they need to get through this storm and then to recover afterwards. Thank you so much for joining us. And good luck out there, sir. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. Is your family okay?
Thankfully, our family is okay. We have a number of friends whose homes have been flooded, who've been rescued by boats. And I will say one thing. Every time we see a crisis like this, what is so encouraging is to see Texans coming together and just helping their neighbors. There are hundreds of Houstonians that have just taken out their own flat-bottom boats or jet skis and are out rescuing neighbors who are in high water. I just visited with a woman, an older woman who uses a walker, who had to walk out with her walker through waist-high water. My mom uses a walker. I can't imagine how difficult that was. She was picked up by a big truck for a big furniture store, Gallery Furniture, terrific store, and given a ride here to the shelter. We're seeing Texans helping Texans, and we're seeing people all over the country supporting the Red Cross, supporting the Salvation Army. That makes a huge, huge difference, and Texas is grateful for the prayers, for the support, and all the incredible generosity.
And remember, the aftermath of this storm, the effects of it will be felt long after it's over. Texas Senator Ted, sir, thank you so much for joining us.